How were your early years growing up in Seattle and Washington?
It was a bit mixed. I mean, overall, from the outside, I grew up in a middle-class family, and, both parents were very loving, and I had everything I needed in terms of, a warm house and family around me and a school to go to. So there were a lot of kind of what seemed to be the fundamental ingredients of a good, healthy childhood. But yeah, definitely from the inside, there was a lot of discomfort from a really early age. I don't know if I can pinpoint when that started, but it was noticeable, and it is hard to kind of put a finger on why that is or where that came from. But a lot of it was just feeling out of place, or not feeling like I really belonged where I was.
What with your peers, do you think? You felt a lack of belonging with your colleagues and peers and people you were at school with?
I mean, I'm talking pretty young, so I think it started with definitely feeling out of place at school and with friends, and then also, maybe not having or not being in the place to accept, for whatever reason, the love that was coming from family and parents and family friends and people around me. So, it was started to become more noticeable and more noticeable as I grew older.
Love from our parents normally is a great foundation for loving ourselves and being reasonably, can we say, stable. It sounds almost quite privileged in terms of the love that you described from your parents and the fact that it was a middle-class upbringing.
Well, it was there, and I don't know if necessarily my parents were, they ended up getting divorced, so they weren't in the best relationships, with each other.
Did you detect that as a young?
Yeah, definitely. Right. So there was definitely an uncomfortableness in the family unit. It didn't feel like a unit. While my parents were, loving, and there wasn't any physical violence or anything like that towards me, there was definitely that feeling of this isn't a family unit. That relationship, source relationship, I guess, between the parents wasn't, didn't seem right in a sense. And so there was definitely, that was visible as a kid, yeah.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, one older sister.
Right.
So, we experienced that together, yeah.
When do you think that you detected that things may not have been too cosy between mum and dad?
That's a good question. Is probably around 5, 6, 7, somewhere around there. There was definitely disagreements going on regularly, so it didn't seem like it was kind of a relationship that was thriving in any way. Right. And in terms of like the messages that I was getting as a child, they were definitely coming from mom, and dad separately, as opposed to kind of together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you might have got a few mixed messages.
Possibly, yeah. Possibly.
So, what was the outcome from that background?
Well, I as that discomfort, I guess, that I felt at a young age, obviously I started to look for ways to fix that, or to make myself feel maybe more, more whole, or like I belonged, trying to search for something that would make me feel better.
Where did that search take you?
Yeah, well, as early as I can remember, it started, funnily enough, with sugar, probably, and then moved into, stealing a few things, doing that kind of thrill-seeking, and then as early as around 9, 10, 11, sneaking down and tasting the alcohol in the basement fridge, and kind of wondering, and being very delighted at kind of what that gave me. And so that kind of gradually became more regular.
To the extent that it was a problem, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was quite a lot of experimentation, from 10, 11 was pretty light, but definitely 12, 13 started pretty regularly drinking and smoking weed, experimenting with other things like mushrooms or acid or really anything I could get my hands on. It was kind of like there's all these tools out here that make me feel a different way, and I just want to use as many of them as I can as often as possible. Yeah. So
did those tools or drugs or stimulants, did they address the discomfort?
Yeah, I mean, in a certain way they did. They definitely made me feel better or made me numb to the feelings, altogether, and allowed me, to also find other people. I mean, I guess it's kind of like finding a purpose. Like you just have this goal every day now to either meet people or find, ways to get more drugs or alcohol or anything that will kind of, bring that feeling of getting out of myself or out of my head or out of the discomfort.
So these other people you recognised were experiencing the same feelings as you, and how did you get to discuss the fact that you were experimenting with drugs and maybe these people were, and you could get together? How did you find?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was naturally kind of drawn to certain people. I mean, at the age of 13, 14, you do start to kind of notice people that might be a little bit more on the outside, I guess, in school and that, or around the city. So, I grew up. Seattle's a big city, and I grew up pretty centrally. So, you do start to recognize that kind of recklessness and the people that are, doing those things, using drugs and alcohol regularly. I was just drawn to them.
Did your parents get any hint of your recklessness?
A little bit. I mean, to be honest, at the time, my sister was going through difficulties as well, and so there was some of the kind of attention was focused on her. Right. I was quite good at people-pleasing, so I came across as very mellow. And
there might have been a reason why you were mellow.
I was going to say compliant.
Yeah. No, it was, I was pretty compliant, and I came across that way. So it kind of gave me the ability to keep some of my kind of goings-on the down low.
Right. These goings-on, did they impact your emotional health or your mental health at all?
Yeah, I mean... there's, it definitely stunts it to a huge extent in terms of the emotional health, because there was no kind of acknowledgement of any emotion, and, other traumatic things that, happened along the way, whether it was with parents or other experiences. They were just not looked at, from myself.
I mean, at school, did you feel a bit like an outsider? You were bullied, maybe, or...?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I wasn't... I mean, there might have been some light bullying, but I was also kind of the goofy one, I guess. And then, the one that had access to drugs and alcohol or knew about those things, or...
So that made you popular, I suppose.
In a sense. I mean, it made me kind of on the side in a way that... people would, a lot of people, other kids might just not want to go there. They might, feel uncomfortable with that, or they know or they get told that drugs and alcohol are bad, so they kind of stay away. But then were especially on 14, 15, other kids that were more interested in, kind of wanting to ask for my help, trying to get drugs or alcohol.
So that was the impact of that you felt a bit important. You were almost an advisor on these things.
Yeah. Oh, it was thrilling. Yeah, because I was, that was definitely worked up in my ego of trying to do this more regularly so that I could have access to this all the time. And, other kids seemed to think I was cool or treat me more grown up.
Yeah.
And then you're in touch, or you kind of are in contact with older kids as well at that age who are more regularly, involved in drugs and alcohol, dealing it and that. And so when you kind of come into contact with them at that age, you definitely feel it's exciting, to kind of step into that world a little bit.
I mean, that was going to be my next question. Did you ever deal drugs and alcohol so that you made some coin on the way through?
Not regularly, no. It wasn't. I would not have been good at that. I mean, I was too selfish. I mean, at school I would definitely help people out every once in a while, but it wasn't to make money. It was, I'd be with them at the time,
right,
doing the drugs or alcohol.
Take it from us on 104.6 Planet FM.
I mean, did you describe your drug use as an addiction, Danny?
You mean back when I was...
Yeah.
Well, I think there was a point where I knew that I couldn't stop even if I wanted to. And that, I guess, I mean, to be honest, my mother had some kind of experience in Al-Anon, and so her father was an alcoholic, and so she, I think, had talked to us a bit, especially when she could tell we were using and abusing drugs and alcohol. She would talk to me about the idea of addiction and alcoholism, and so I mean, I was aware of that, and then there was a point where I realized that it was pretty challenging to stop for more than a few hours or a day or
I mean, what happened to your schooling and?
So I was kicked out. I mean, there was a point where obviously I was using every day and skipping a lot, and my grades were horrible because I just was not going. And so I was eventually, I wasn't expelled, but they said, you can, as long as you go to treatment, we'll let you kind of resign or step away peacefully.
Right.
So I was sent off to a wilderness treatment. So it was out in the 8 weeks out in the wild with, just a little bit of food and some guides and a tarp to set up tent each night.
Yeah. And you were moving around in the forest.
In Utah. So it was... that was a pretty special experience.
Was it specially designed for young people?
Who had issues such as addiction. I think they were broader kind of, I guess, behavioral problems, if you want to call them that. But
those behavioral problems, I mean, you were saying that you certainly had some behavioral problems, I guess, due to the addiction. Was there any threat to your mental health at this time in your life?
Well, I mean, it's kind of in terms of mental health, yes, I was, there were no kind of diagnoses of mental health issues in a sense. I had been to a few different psychologists a few times who, definitely said that, my emotional kind of well-being was pretty far off where it needed to be, and but there were no kind of labels at that point other than the talk around addiction.
So let's move on then to the Mind Tribe. That's been one of your focuses since arriving in New Zealand. How long have you been in New Zealand?
Almost coming up on 7 years.
Right.
So I came after high school. I got clean. So after the car crash, I got clean. I was 16. I finished high school and decided to come out here for a year just to do kind of a holiday around before starting university back in the States.
Fell in love with New Zealand?
But yeah, once I got here, I fell in love and decided to stay.
You're with Take It From Us on 104.6 Planet FM.
I guess one of the main things we're trying to do is provide a space for, I guess, different journeys or different experiences of journeys to wellness in terms of mental health. And, we don't have an opinion on psychiatric drugs. We're not here to say they're good or bad. There's such a huge, varied experience of psychiatric drugs, and there's so many different types of psychiatric drugs. But one thing that we definitely know for sure from talking to the community and from just, watching the news, looking at stats, is that there isn't that representation or that support for people who are, looking to, considering, or in the process of getting off psychiatric drugs.
So what is the Mind Tribe saying about the issue of getting off psychiatric drugs? Are you just offering resources to offer options, if you like, or...?
Yeah, I mean, we're just saying that there needs to be more support. And, I mean, at this time, we're very early, with our organization in terms of what we can actually do. We don't have any funding at this point, where it's all volunteer-led. So, we're trying to be sustainable. And that means we want to provide something sustainable. And so at this point, all we can really provide is that space for people to come in and share their experiences. So it's an open group led by a facilitator, my sister, who has lived experience.
Respect yourself.